Good morning, everybody. It's lovely to see so many people here at the Printworks. My name is Nessa Roche, and I'm here on behalf of the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage. And we're going to have a really packed Charter National Stakeholder Day today. And we've got a great mix of people from Ireland, from different countries in Europe, and from the odd person from further afield. We have a very slight change to the running order. The person who's meant to be up here, Daniel Sinnott, unfortunately is ill today. So Daniel is the Principal Officer in charge of the National Built Heritage Service in the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage. So you have me instead, Nessa Roche. I'm one of the organisers of the event and a partner in Charter. And I'm absolutely delighted to welcome you all here. And we're going to just welcome on behalf of our partner organisations, but I think we may do that in just a few minutes more because our Minister Malcolm Noonan, is actually delayed in traffic as well. So I think the first thing we should do is ask Lluís Bonet, Professor Lluís Bonet, who is the coordinator of the project, to give us an introduction to what is Charter, what are we all doing here, and what do we hope to achieve. Thank you very much.
Diagic accorge agus ademi oshil. Falchi rove a balia asha shiria. Tahimich on safto oves on sho. Mela vecus os oshat du falchi crow yul. Good morning. Probably my Gaelic is not the best pronunciation in the world, but my colleagues from Charter knows that I always want to start my first words in any Charter meeting using our linguistic heritage. And Irish language is it's a very important part of the European cultural heritage. And that's why I wanted to start my words using it. I will continue in English, I'm sorry. I can't continue speaking in Gaelic. But I want to present very shortly what is the Charter project about, what we are doing, what we will do during these days. And of course, I want to start thanking the wonderful organization that our partners here in Ireland have been doing in order to have this fantastic day. So really, without them, we won't be here, and I hope you will enjoy this day. So I just start with a very short presentation of what Charter is about. Charter is a blueprint project. What is a blueprint project? A blueprint project is a kind of project that the European Union is pushing in order to see and to try to analyze the gaps between the needed professional skills in a changing world and the gaps between that and the education and training available. How we change this. So this is the main idea. This is the main goal of this project. It's a 4-year project, so quite a big one. And we want, first, to try to clarify occupation roles. We want to integrate in a responsive education system. We are working, trying to identify innovative emerging curricula and propose specific guidelines, and we are working on that. We also want to analyze the challenges, the opportunities, and finally, we want to create an alliance among heritage institutions, education and training institutions in order to give better possibilities to the cultural heritage sector in Europe. To do that, we are a very big consortium. So we are 47 members. To manage this is not easy. 2 of them are from Ireland. So we have the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage, which is thanks to them that we are here, and the Heritage Council. So both of them have been working very hard in order to prepare this journey today. We also have other full members representing the leading, 7 leading academic institutions in Europe, also employer and policymaker organizations, plus 6 European or international cultural networks. So, and in the map you can see that we have people around Europe, and through our network organizations, we also have people in the rest of the countries that are not represented by us. So what is a little bit the trail of this project? So we started doing research, trying to analyze, for one side, the professional taxonomies, the regional heritage ecosystem, the job vacancies in the field of cultural heritage. We work on the quality standards on different education schemes. We did benchmarking on innovative and emerging curricula. And all this research has been used in order to propose a strategy. We propose 8 fields of curricula that we have been working on guidelines. We have been working in drivers of change and scenario building, and we are at this very moment, and here in Dublin we'll work deeply on this, on designing recommendations to the different stakeholders. But we have a feature, Charter 1N in 2024, at the end of 2024, but the idea is to build an alliance. So we will start working during this next year on how and in the way of building this alliance. So this is part of our activities. In our webpage, you will see that we have been working quite a lot. So there are some of the deliverables that we have been doing during these last times, and there are 3 which are at this very moment just very ready to be published, or these last ones. So I invite you to go to our webpage to read them. I think it's a wonderful work done by our consortium members. And what is the goal of this meeting here in Dublin? So the goal is to go from these findings to the challenges required in order to build recommendations to different typologies of stakeholders. That is the main task we will do during these days in Dublin. So, and we will do organize in 5 big groups, so which are a little bit the 5 main messages we want to say: that heritage matters in a fast-changing society. A resilient sector of skilled professionals is what we need to build. An updated education and training for European heritage. And this will be possible if we are able to build a better governance for a sustainable sector and having awareness and accurate indicators for a recognized sector. So these a little bit are the way that we are organizing our findings and we are organizing our recommendation. So during these 3 days in Dublin, today we have the National Day, the day that we will focus on the analysis of the reality of the Irish heritage. So you know, this is the synthesis of the Open Charter Conference of the National Day. So we will start with this first session on the future-focused cultural heritage in Ireland today. Later we will have a second session on identifying the skills needs and the Irish heritage professionals. There will be some presentations later we will work on the challenges in current heritage skills and training, and we'll have 3 parallel thematic discussions. And finally, we will present the results of the exercise done through our regional case studies. We have been working in 6 different regions. We have analyzed a specific case in Il Duomo of Milan, and all these regional cases is part of a deliverable that we will present here, and we will have this very specific session on that. And the next 2 days, we will work to the consortium members in order to work on the design of the final version of the findings, in order to be able, in the next month to propose the recommendation. So this is a little bit the kind of work that we want to do. So I wanted just to share with you this very general introduction in order to give you some idea of who we are and what is the goal of our sessions in Dublin. And I want to say this, thanking again our host organizations. Without you, this was not possible. We know we are very welcome in Ireland. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lluís. I'd like everybody to put their hands together now to welcome our Minister for Nature, Heritage and Electoral Reform, Mr. Malcolm Noonan, TD. Thank you very much, Minister.
Nessa agus díomh go léir ar máidin agus fáilte go dtí Caisleán Balla Clia. Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for the invitation to speak at the opening of this important event, the Charter event. And I'm delighted to be here with you this morning and to extend our warmest welcome to Professor Lluís Bonet, Charter Project Coordinator from the University of Barcelona, and to all the members of the Charter Consortium, and especially to Mariachiara Esposito, Policy Officer and General Directorate for Education and Culture in the European Commission, and indeed to all our Irish cultural heritage stakeholders here present this morning. I would like to also thank Assistant Commissioner Rosemary Collier of the Office of Public Works and to her staff who have worked hard to make this event happen, and a really important event it is. It is our pleasure to host you all here today at the fantastic Printworks here in Dublin Castle, and I do thank you all for your attendance and what I know is going to be active participation and an engaging and very fruitful day for you all. I had a look through the programme on my way up this morning. It looks really interesting and really timely and important, and again just to wish you all the best with that. The Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage, along with the Office of Public Works and the Heritage Council, have been partners in the Charter European Cultural Heritage Skills Alliance since its inception in 2021. The mission of the Charter project is to create a lasting and a comprehensive sectoral skills strategy and to propose training and curricula for the development of new skills for heritage professionals. And we know that it is needed now more than ever. We have a huge challenge around skills sector across the heritage sector in particular. And the work of the Heritage Council here in Ireland through Virginia Tehan's leadership has been very pivotal again in bringing together all of the collaborative partners to ensure that we have a coherent policy arena and to meet the challenges head on. And a significant expansion of the heritage sector in Ireland over the past number of years, in particular through funding from government, but also through the sector itself in meeting what is a fantastic opportunity, I believe, in heritage professional skills. And from our perspective, involvement in the Charter project will assist us in implementing the programme for government commitments to heritage. The knowledge gained in working on this project will also contribute towards implementing actions on capacity building included in our National Heritage Plan, Heritage Ireland 2030, as well as the National Policy on Architecture and our National Strategy on Vernacular Heritage, a Living Tradition. Everyone in this room knows how important it is to cherish and support our cultural heritage and to pass on the knowledge and skills that enable us to safeguard, to preserve, interpret, sustain the places, artefacts and traditions that we all hold dear. This happens in education and training and also by handing on skills within communities, including through the Irish tradition of meitheal. For our visitors, this involves families and neighbours voluntarily cooperating on tasks for their collective benefit. We see it in the Tidy Towns movement in Ireland and in meitheals involved in invasive species management, but also many other really wonderful examples throughout Ireland. It's something we do very, very well here. It is really heartening to see younger generation and immigrants to Ireland getting involved in the process, bringing their diverse perspectives and skill sets to enrich our heritage. It's something I'm seeing in my own communities as well, as asylum seekers get involved in heritage projects and in tidy towns and other initiatives in their own local community. It's really wonderful to see that. Today provides a rare occasion for face-to-face collaboration between a wide variety of cultural heritage stakeholders and experts, both national and international. We will hear from some of our outstanding Irish institutions on their projects, including Open Heart City, the Virtual Treasury, and ICANN Irish Community Archives. There will also be presentations from numerous European regions, which provides an opportunity to learn from their experiences in the cultural heritage arena. And I think the need for cross-European exchanges is really important and hugely important now, to learn as we go and to learn from each other, learn of our experiences in different cultural settings, and to bring them all collectively to the table to try and bring about better solutions for all of us. I have long been convinced of the benefits of using heritage skills for regeneration and community building. The wide-ranging and thought-provoking reports published to date by Charter confirm the necessity and logic of this approach. I fully support the project's emphasis on recognising, valuing and caring for shared resources in a way that works both for people and for the environment. This is a skill we must rediscover as we continue to navigate towards environmental, social and economic durability at home and abroad. I think we've developed really good partnerships in Ireland, both leading through our Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage team in the heritage sector, have done really wonderful work with the sector, the wider sector in Ireland, NGOs and most importantly communities as well. I'm really delighted to see the Charter project reach this advanced stage, working intensely on these complex problems of matching supply and demand in such a critical area. And I look forward to hearing more as the project finalises its recommendations and its outputs in 2024. I really wish you all the very best in your deliberations, and if it's not too early to say it, Nodig Chona Díobh Go Léir, I wish you all a very happy Christmas. Gur míle maith go léir.
Thank you very much, Minister, and kind words for ourselves. And we have, I think, an energy in the room to do something that is meaningful and helpful for many of you from your various different perspectives. And that's why it's great to see people who are working in museums, those who are working on buildings, those who are working in archives, education and training, coming together today. So before we dig any further into our what we do in Ireland, I'd like you to hear an overview of the European situation from Mariachiara Esposito, who is Policy Officer in DG EAC, which is the Education and Audiovisual Agency. Oh my gosh, I'm going to get it wrong. I'm sorry, Mariachiara. I'd like to welcome you to the stage and to explain. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nessa and the Irish organizers. I also wish to thank the Minister for his introduction, and especially the whole partnership from Charter, Lluís, and all the people that have always put together so very timely and well-structured initiatives. And I'm delighted and honored to try to give a small contribution to the journey and to the activities that this project has been developing in such an intense way. I will try, from the perspective of the Cultural Policy Unit, where I work at DG for Education and Culture, to give an overview of the context in which, let's say, the increasing attention for heritage on one side and for the importance of investing in skills enhancement for the future roles of the cultural heritage professionals has been connected more and more to a number of sectors and policies where the idea of innovation is very central, because the key transitions that on one side have to do with the green sustainability transformations and the digital evolutions have allowed at the European level to put heritage more and more at the center of initiatives and strategies that touch upon a number of skills and a number of strategies where the main notions of the project to combine traditional and transversal skills is particularly relevant. And I will focus in particular on one of our main programs, which is the Horizon Europe one, that we have been discussing in many occasions with partners of Charter and also the stakeholders that are normally following these developments from a European perspective, on a recent initiative that we're going to develop in the Commission, dedicated to a co-funded partnership for resilient cultural heritage. As I said, one of the main areas in which cultural heritage has become a very relevant aspect of a number of policies that empower society and bring positive change to local communities has to do with the attention that EU and international bodies are giving to sustainability agendas. So this interplay between cultural heritage and the priorities for climate and sustainability in particular, but also what was connected to the recovery post-pandemic, but also to the relaunch of the economies and for inclusion and well-being, always have more and more heritage at their heart. And I want to flag what was discussed very recently about culture at the COP28 in Dubai, and discussion about a possible future for increasing the potential and the presence of culture at the heart of climate action through a global call that has been signed and gathered a number of stakeholders that are pleading for including cultural heritage, the arts and creative sectors truly in climate policies. So this is a movement that is ongoing and is growing in Europe and in member states. Indeed, this is also very linked to our recent works at the European Commission and in our policy unit. I draw your attention to this report. I will not present all the narrative and discussion that was behind this latest work that was conducted in cooperation with the sectors, with civil society organizations of cultural different areas and industries, to study and analyze what are the policies, the strategies, and the needs of culture to be better equipped to face the green transition. And here you can just see how the group of experts that together with the Commission developed this analysis and this set of recommendations show cultural heritage and culture at large in different ways of supporting society and other policies to create the conditions for sustainability. So from the perspective of the power of culture to help changing behaviors and shifting towards sustainability trends, to the perspective of empowering other sectors and industries to be inspired and role modeled by culture for sustainability. Of course, in the report, you will have plenty of examples of best practices and of suggestions on how different European policies can be leveraged and should be reinforced to upscaling the role of culture for sustainability developments, which of course also implies looking at skills and the importance of the attractiveness of the roles of the sector to become also more and more a driver of this green transformation. And this is also proved by the other very important initiative that is more and more under the radar of European programs, which is the New European Bauhaus, which has been funded in different calls and programs, but has a central part in Horizon Europe, so it's very connected to the capacity of different sectors to empower cultural professionals, so again, the importance of skills enhancement, and using artists, designers, architects, heritage workers to produce this impact directed to the three levels and the three principles that the Bauhaus notion includes. Again, sustainability, so translating the Green Deal into tangible results, creating an environment for innovation, which is connected to inclusiveness and to aesthetics, which are the other two principles of the Bauhaus, and changing lifestyles. So using culture to leverage the capacity of communities to work in a way that technological developments on one side and arts and culture on the other can merge and can really create this transversal approach to increase the well-being and the living quality of environments. So you see that the greening aspect is particularly important in everything that has to do now with the development of cultural policies and cultural heritage scenarios. And this is also translated into a new view that we are proceeding with in the Creative Europe program. Indeed, there has been a study, and you will see that in the future calls of Creative Europe, so again, important to take into account for equipping cultural professionals towards European projects that can leverage cooperation in culture, responding to Creative Europe calls in a way that will be more and more connected to an environmental friendly way of working and of reducing the impact on the environment. So it's important to think of heritage as the connection and the combination of the material and immaterial aspects, because indeed the idea of built environment really expresses this combination of tangible and intangible that is particularly important for the green transformation. And finally, my main focus here is, as I said at the beginning, on the Horizon Europe program, where a standalone area of intervention has been introduced in this programming period for cultural heritage and cultural creative industries. And within this area, which includes a number of topics and regular calls where cultural heritage professionals, cultural practitioners, artists, together with researchers, museums, institutions, and other heritage institutions can apply and do applied research together in cultural spaces or other settings where to use cultural heritage as a driver of innovation through research, has been increasingly dedicating attention again to climate change. Through a public consultation, we understood at the European level that climate change represents the first position for European stakeholders and citizens who participated in this survey to request an intervention, a research and innovation level of investment, even in this area of culture and cultural heritage. So in a horizontal way in the research environment. And for this reason, the European Commission, together with member states, is considering the possibility to fund a new partnership, which would be a coordinated and co-funded initiative for cultural heritage, with the idea of supporting resilience in cultural heritage with a particular focus on climate change. This is being discussed. It's already an advanced discussion because in the second part of Horizon Europe 2025-2027, a new wave of partnerships as a tool of funding in the program will be approved. And among the list of partnerships to be adopted, cultural heritage is already at a high position. And the idea of this partnership is really to let research institutions, ministries from research, from culture, foundations, and many other partners in the member states, together with the Commission, to invest for the next at least 7 years on cultural heritage connected to climate research to face climate change challenges, but to see cultural heritage also as part of the solution. So really to use heritage as a driver for adaptation, mitigation, and innovation aspects of sustainability. This is, as I said, something under discussion, and it would also aim to create, let's say, a pathway for translating the scientific outcomes that are connected to research and to the role of researchers into, of course, better and more regular policies for resilience and sustainability. So it will really be something where both policymakers in ministries and researchers and all the stakeholders that support heritage research and applications, technological and social innovation for heritage in the climate environment, to conduct connections, to converge programs and invest together in the coming years for more targeted actions to this field. This, let's say, initiative implies also an important level of advocacy from cultural heritage stakeholders in this phase where member states have to commit to agree to the idea of co-funding this partnership, because it will be, of course, confirmed only if many member states in Europe will confirm their intention to co-fund and also their capacity of having partners at the background that can converge for ensuring these coordinated actions. So in the implementation, it will be also important for cultural heritage institutions to be there next to the politicians and policymakers, gathering partners from the industry, universities, different foundations and bodies that can combine and join forces to put together resources and to put together work in the field. So if approved, this initiative will materialize in 2025, and it will last between at least 7 and 10 years. And the, let's say, hopeful result would be to dedicate at least 100 million from the budget of Cluster 2. So you can see it's a very substantial initiative. And this is also part, to conclude, let's say, my overview of a wider approach of this intervention area of the Horizon Europe program that will continue to fund research for cultural heritage, also aside of the partnership. So there will be continuing further calls for proposals that can be of interest for you stakeholders and also for the partnership of Charter to continue investing on the main priorities of the program, from not only sustainability but also access to cultural resources, the important initiative, the European Collaborative Cloud that many of you have already heard about, the investment on CCIs for their innovation and competitiveness, and also the very important role of heritage for reinforcing and building the sense of belonging, where there will be specific calls in the next years where researchers on cultural heritage can use the tools, the strategies, their efforts to create consortia that will tackle also some of the problematic issues that heritage is facing. And also the very important evolutions in the digital scenario, the artificial intelligence implications, all the challenges for heritage managers in this field will also continue to receive funding. But as I said, I really wanted to give you, let's say, a flash on this very specific aspect of the cluster, which is more and more connected to the sustainability and climate change priority. And out of that, the idea of a partnership came out, which will also build of some of the projects that individually have been funded so far. And here I just sum up a list of those that are ongoing and that can be inspiring also to look at what kind of developments and skills innovations are being created through the results of these projects. And here I leave just a couple of further information for you to navigate through, which are important resources from the European level that you can regularly consult. about other funding programs in addition to Horizon and the Creative Europe, which I mentioned, where this interactive funding guide can be very helpful for cultural heritage professionals to find opportunities, financing possibilities, and also examples of funding projects. And there is a portal dedicated to this, which is also part of a larger initiative called Creatives Unite, a platform where managers and heritage professionals and cultural workers can not only find information from the European level opportunities, but can also upload and include their projects and their content to share within the European context practices and examples of projects with the other potential partners in Europe. So this is just to, let's say, conclude with the message that it's very, very timely for you through the Charter project to look at the developments that will more and more connect the practitioners. So the idea from Europe is to try leverage the possibility of platforms where all sorts of skills and professionalism can be upscaled, can become more and more attractive, and can be shared in an environment where resources are more and more put together, also from a financial point of view. And with this, I thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you very much, Mariachiara. Now, this, if anything, will increase the levels of energy and interest in the room. It is to know that for people like us, we're no longer on the outside wondering, you know, how to make ourselves relevant to the major areas of funding, etc. So really very happy to hear Mariachiara say these interesting and really pivotal remarks about how we can take our sector forward. Minister, I'm sorry, do we have to say goodbye to you now? I'm very sorry that you can't stay. It was lovely to have you here. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. So, I'd like now for our other hosting institutions, our partners in the project, if Virginia and Terry might step up to the microphone, please, just very briefly to tell everybody. I'm sure most people in the room know Virginia, and Terry Sweeney is going to introduce the OPW on behalf of Assistant Commissioner Rosemary Collier, who can't be here today. So Virginia, please.
Thank you, Nessa. Good morning, everybody, and a special welcome to colleagues from the EU Commissioner, from the EU Commission, members of the Charter Alliance, and also those affiliates of the Alliance, and particularly to members of the heritage profession in Ireland. It's a great pleasure for me to be here today, and it's a privilege for the Heritage Council to be part of this very important and innovative alliance, which is dealing with an area of work that is key to the future of heritage across Europe. And as Nessa says, it's wonderful to be part of that wider European alliance. Geographically, Ireland is on the edge, and being on the edge means that you can be marginalised and somewhat removed. But it also means that you learn to respond to the challenges that isolation presents in a creative way, and a way that's focused on the delivery of solutions and innovative new ways of work. I was reflecting when the last speaker was delivering that excellent overview of the Charter Alliance and indeed the future work for heritage, particularly research into heritage as offered through Horizon, the Horizon project. And I was reflecting on how the EU has really supported the development of technology and emerging technologies in Ireland, particularly in the third level sector. The landscape for research in Ireland is changing, and there is a merger between Science Foundation Ireland and the Irish Research Council. As some here in this room will know, the Irish Research Council in the main was the funding body that supported research in the humanities, which would include heritage. I very much hope, and I expect that other directors of the national cultural institutions in the room here will advocate to ensure that heritage and indeed the aligned disciplines in the humanities will receive support in this new structure, and that a world that at times is on the edge is more central. It is very heartening to hear that there will be increased resources available to research projects within heritage under the banner of the Horizon programme, because this will give a relevance and importance to humanities research, which is all too often forgotten and neglected in light of the large funding opportunities that is offered in the sciences. So for that reason and a variety of other reasons, today's event is very welcome and very important. As the Minister mentioned, the Programme for Government, Heritage Ireland 2030 and the Heritage Council's own strategic plan all focus on research. Not only research into heritage disciplines, but indeed research that supports and attempts to evaluate the impact of heritage across social, economic and cultural values. This is not an easy ask. The practice of heritage cannot be easily expressed and reflected in bite-sized KPIs. Its meaning goes deeper, and it has a broader width across society. Developing new criteria and approaches to looking at how we can value heritage and support the development of professional research practices, both within heritage professional groups and within the third level sector, is an important next step for Irish heritage. The Heritage Council is very pleased to be part of this. As I said, we focus on research in our new strategic plan, and we have appointed a head of research and learning. We look forward to continuing to work with people in this room and colleagues across Europe in the development of this work. And I hope that you really enjoy what looks to be a very important and fruitful 3 days of work. Gurb míle maith agaibh go léir.
Thank you very much, Virginia. It's great. In Ireland, we have always had a central heritage function, or since 1994, in a government department and the Heritage Council. So there's an opportunity to work at a policy level, but also to get deeply involved at the level of local people and local needs and local education and training. And this is an area, involvement at local authority and sector level, that the Heritage Council performs so wonderfully. And it's not a job that could ever be done by central government. And it's great that we have the Heritage Council here. Now, I'm looking around because I can't see anything. I'm blinded by lights here. If Terry Sweeney is in the audience, and if not, maybe Greta Doyle might just say a few words for the OPW. If Terry's here, or nobody's standing up. Anyway, Greta, thank you very much. Just a welcome few words. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Nessa. And I'm speaking to you on behalf of Rosemary Collier, Head of Heritage Services, and Terry Sweeney. I know that they would have given you a far more interesting and richer welcome. So I would just like to thank you all for coming here today. We're very pleased to meet again our friends in the Charter community. Equally, we welcome our friends in the Irish heritage community. The OPW has a long tradition, as many of you will know, in heritage skills, and is committed to building on this tradition. The OPW is very pleased to be an associative partner in the Charter project, and working closely with our colleagues in the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage. And lastly, we very much look forward to engaging with everyone in this room, and we wish you an informative and hugely successful day today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Greta. It's fantastic. The OPW on the technical side as well as the heritage side put on a very good show, and I'd like everybody to thank the OPW for giving us this venue today, and we have a Christmas market just for ourselves when we're finished this evening. So it's a great venue and it's a great place to be in a general sense with the OPW, but we have work to do. So that concludes the first part of the morning, and now we're going to get straight into 3 short presentations. And in looking to see how could we demonstrate the future-focused nature of heritage, it's not something fixed in the past, we thought, well, Charter has 3 core functions. And these are ways of working or engaging, the types of work or tasks that people do when they work with heritage that generally aren't really associated with ordinary linear types of economic sectors like retail or production of motor vehicles. And these are the idea of recognition, of, I suppose, identifying and ascribing value to something, and that could be material or immaterial. The second one is safeguarding and preservation. Whatever actions may be needed or ways of maintaining these values into the future of the identified and recognized thing, be it an object or not. And the third is engagement and use. So, because for us, heritage only lives when it is actually a living thing. It is relevant to people, to cultures as they develop. And it's a constantly changing spiral of interconnections between people and their places and their traditions and the things that matter to them. So in designing this session, we thought, well, we'll have a small talk from each of these core functions. So our first one, we're looking at recognition. And for those of you who are visitors to Ireland, we have been grappling with our past. Many countries in Europe are grappling with various different parts of their past. And some of these things are quite dark, are elements of how our society was in the past that we should, I suppose, identify with. We have to rationalize our process perhaps in our mind and move forward, but bring them forward with us. They are parts of our history, they're parts of our present, they'll be parts of our future. So I'm very pleased to welcome Georgina Laragy talking about a fantastic transdisciplinary project, and it's more of an initiative. There's more than just a project in it. Histories of Confinement and Dark Heritage in Ireland. Thank you very much, Georgina.
Thank you very much, Nessa, and thanks, Danielle, as well, for the invitation. I'm the director of a master's programme in public history and cultural heritage just down the road at Trinity College, and I'm really looking forward to hearing about all of the work that you do as part of the Charter group and also as heritage workers in Ireland as well. But as part of this programme, I teach a graduate module on institutions of confinement from a public history and cultural heritage perspective. And it's been a really interesting time to consider this aspect of what has been termed our dark heritage. And I suppose at the outset I should say Louise Lowe is going to speak very specifically about the Sean McDermott Street Open Heart project, and also the creative outputs that Anu, their production company, create. So I'm giving more of an overview on institutions of confinement and their role in public history and cultural heritage. The last 20 years in Ireland has been a really interesting time to teach about institutions of confinement. We've seen the development of the newly curated Kilmainham Jail, the opening of Spike Island, which was a former convict prison in Cork, as well as the controversial histories that have emerged from the past, histories of the confinement of women and children since the establishment of the Irish state 100 years ago. An example of the public history products or outputs that I'm talking about are the Ryan Report in 2009 into Irish industrial schools and reformatories, the McAleese Report into the Magdalene laundries in 2013, and the Tuam Mother and Baby Home scandal since 2014, and the published report in the last 2 years. There's been a huge amount of public discussion and activity. There's been a huge amount of public discussion and public activity around Ireland's history of confinement, our history of excluding people from society, our history of locking people up. And internationally, there's also been considerable public activity in this area as well, a lot of state engagement, a lot of research and a lot of scholarship around this aspect of the past. One of the examples are the Canadian residential schools, where the Canadian government would have confined native populations, children, and separated them from their communities and their families. And this resulted in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and a central archival repository, which the Sean McDermott Street site is somewhat modelled on, or certainly speaks to. In addition to that, we have things like Netflix documentaries like 13th, which talks about the role of enslavement and how that feeds into the contemporary experience of confinement and imprisonment in African American communities in the US today. And Ireland is really no different, I suppose, and that's referenced with Kilmainham Jail, with workhouses, Magdalene laundries, etc. We have our own reports and our own inquiries, and the Sean McDermott Street Open Heart City project is part of the public history discussion around this and the cultural heritage activity around this. And these type of outputs or products help large swathes of the public to recognise, and that's one of the things that we're talking about here today, is recognition, to recognise the ways in which historical injustices such as racism and misogyny have destroyed lives and communities. But underpinning all of those official and popular heritage kind of outputs or products are the sites themselves, the people who were and are housed in institutions of confinement, and the heritage we hold, which has been for a while ignored. These tend to be victims of what Cornelius Holtorf, a Swedish archaeologist, has referred to as the heritage of heritage. For the longest time, Ireland's focus has been on ancient history, on our landscape. And it's only as we've moved towards the decade of centenaries in the last 10 years that more modern histories have come to the fore. And a great example of this is in the Irish context, in terms of histories of confinement, is Kilmainham Jail here in Dublin, a jewel in the crown of the OPW. It ceased to function as a prison in 1924 after the end of the Irish Civil War, and it fell back into the ownership of Dublin City Council, and then it was sold back to the state for a nominal fee. And then it fell into disrepair. There have been commitments to restore it and to preserve it as a monument, but those promises were not met. And as a result, then, volunteers, many of them living in the area, or many of them who had been associated with the area or with the Irish Revolution, came to be involved in a voluntary restoration project that preserved the monument for future generations and has made it what it is today, one of the top visitor attractions, but also one of the most important monuments in Dublin City. The Kilmainham Jail's restoration group was established in 1958, emerging from a grassroots collective, a community of activists who wanted to preserve the site. But it was beset by lack of government interest and financial support, and so volunteers did the repairs and restoration, and people learned on the site. Apprenticeships were held on the site, various different, there was education on the site, and this all took place from a community point of view. Eventually, it was opened in April 1966 in time for the 50th anniversary of the 1916 Rising. And the story of its restoration has become part of the story of the site itself. So it's part of the heritage of heritage. And that was evident in an exhibition in 2010-2011 that looked at the 1960s restoration. And so Kilmainham is a slightly obvious site to look at when we think of histories of confinement. And I only mention it here not because it is like this jewel in the crown, which it is, or because it's associated with the Irish Revolution, which it also is, but because it's one of the first examples of community activism within the heritage space around institutions of confinement, that I can see anyway. There are hundreds of sites of confinement in Ireland. In addition to the obvious prisons and jails, we have workhouses, psychiatric hospitals, Magdalene asylums, mother and baby homes, industrial schools, and military barracks. These institutions were part of a European and Western-wide move from the 18th century to house problematic populations, people who needed care, people who couldn't effectively support themselves. And alongside the people who were confined within the high walls and locked behind the closed doors were those who did the locking, the jailers, nurses, nuns, doctors, a cohort of professionals whose story is also contained within these walls. And I suppose one of the things that I like to think about is the development of professional knowledge that emerged out of these institutions. We think of social work and probation officers, we think of doctors and psychiatrists, and to think of the level of professional knowledge that can be created as a result of returning to these sites as examples of our heritage, I think is an interesting way to think about it. Institutionalization of populations is a recognized moment within Western history, what Michel Foucault has referred to as the Great Confinement. And its corollary, then deinstitutionalization, which began after the Second World War, has left Irish towns and cities with buildings no longer used for their original purpose and histories that have been left languishing. The Tuam Workhouse, the site of such controversy since 2014, was one of 163 workhouses that date from the 1830s. They're peppered across the countryside. It became a mother and baby home for unmarried mothers until the 1960s, but many of the other workhouses had other functions. There are district hospitals in Mount Mellick, for example. There are I'll talk a bit about museums in a few minutes and heritage sites, but some of them were destroyed during the War of Independence. Some of them became county homes, and at least 2 were prisoner of war camps for Germans living in Ireland during the First World War. So they have a really complex and interesting and non-singular history to tell. The first psychiatric hospital in Ireland was St Patrick's in Dublin, established in the 18th century with a bequest from Jonathan Swift, but there are 22 public psychiatric hospitals around the country that date from the 1810s. There are numerous Magdalene asylums around the country, and the last one only closed in 1996, and that is the Sean McDermott Street site that's been mentioned already. There were multiple industrial schools as well and reformatories. And the question, I suppose, for heritage practitioners now and for communities is, what do we do with these buildings, with these histories and with this heritage? Because they don't tell a story of an ancient people worshipping the sun like we have at Newgrange, and they don't tell the story of the Irish Revolution. They tell part of our relationship with Britain, but not the whole lot, because these institutions tell the stories of the people who were in these institutions, of the people who worked on them on a day-to-day basis, of the communities that grew up around them, the businesses that flourished from dealing with them. There's a lot of complexity there. And they tell stories of women and children, of the sick and the poor, of pain and suffering, as well as strength and resilience. These institutions of confinement possess a really complicated heritage. There's the built heritage in need of preservation. There's the intangible community heritage. There's a store of stories and knowledge among local communities, among people in the contemporary sites of containment that are the nursing homes. The elderly possess a huge amount of knowledge about these institutions. So there are multiple stakeholders who are concerned with these sites, most significantly the communities that live nearby now and watch as they become derelict and as the memories are lost. And people like Louise Lowe and the Anu Production Company, the Open Heart City project at Sean McDermott Street, Grange Gorman Histories at Grange Gorman Psychiatric Hospital site, which is now the Technological University of Dublin. Outside of Dublin, you have Farney Community Development Group, who run the Carrickmacross Workhouse in Monaghan, the South East Galway Integrated Rural Development, not-for-profit local development company, who conserve and operate the Irish Workhouse Centre in Portumna. These are all innovative, community-based public history projects working in the space of cultural heritage that involve communities as well as the buildings themselves, each of them looking to the future to retain and build on the knowledge that we have and should not be lost. Dealing with difficult heritage requires sensitivity. It requires one eye on the past and one eye on the future. It also requires organisations, communities, historians and the state to share authority. Sorry, I missed a few slides. To share authority. It tells the stories of the past and it asks us to listen to each other, to bring our own competencies to the table. The sites require an interdisciplinary approach. And we have seen that such sites have a track record of showing us how heritage can maintain relationships, can create, consolidate and empower communities to take care of what we have, what's important to us individually and collectively, and to give pride, to give skills, to give professions, to give tools, etc. We've seen that with Kilmainham, and we've also seen how that becomes part of our heritage as well. The Faro Convention recognises the value of heritage as it relates to human rights and democracy. Heritage is not just about honouring the past, but about recognising the needs of communities today, often very deprived communities. And I'm always struck when I think of Portumna Workhouse, Carrickmacross Workhouse, Sean McDermott Street, Open Heart City project. These are not in areas that are typically visited by tourists. They don't get huge investment from international companies. They are often in areas that suffer from historical deprivation as well as contemporary deprivation. And that's part of the history that needs to be told as well. Heritage can facilitate the communities to participate in and cultivate a sense of belonging and connection to where they live, the history and its future. And they can be sites where government and other agents of power in our society can learn about deprivation, the impact of inequality, and how those communities see themselves and their futures in order to improve the future for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Georgina. That was great. I mean, great and deep, and causes us to realise that we're not dealing with just the optional, I suppose, feel-good parts of heritage, the things that are maybe, I suppose, the focus of cultural tourism, perhaps. This is about real lived lives and the impacts, the psychological impacts and the cultural, I suppose, ramifications through the ages, and then how perhaps heritage can look not only in terms of sustainability, sustaining the person and the communities at such local levels and honouring what they have done and do now. I have to say that Louise Lowe unfortunately had to leave. She had another appointment. We're running late, and I apologise. You have all in your programmes got the links to the Open Heart City website, and unfortunately that will have to do with regard to the explanation of this extraordinary project in the Sean McDermott Street home. I'd like to welcome Kieran Wallace to the stage now, please, to talk about an extraordinary digitalisation project. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks, Nessa, and thanks, Danielle, for the invitation. I'm lucky enough to work on a project which is a collaboration between historians like myself, computer scientists and archivists. And the project we're working on is to recreate the lost archive of Ireland, which was destroyed in 1922. So the Public Record Office of Ireland was based in the Four Courts in Dublin. It was a separate building in the Four Courts complex in the city centre. It was, I'll show you sort of its early history. It was destroyed in 1922, and with it went 7 centuries of Irish heritage. What I aim to do today is to show you a little bit about the project we're working on, how we're doing the restoration work, and then I'm going to be cheeky and give a couple of reflections on things I think we have learned from doing the project, because we were, expanding into new world. We're funded by the Department of Culture, state funded by the Department of Culture under the decade of centenaries. And although we were marking the centenary of the destruction, what we aim to do is open a door to Ireland's older history. So it'll be a permanent legacy project which will allow people in the heritage sector, both professionals and members of the general public, to that third cog in that very good graphic that Georgina had, where history can just be one of the cogs that's turning, with the community being the larger cog. Yep, there we go. So the Public Record Office of Ireland, the building itself was located inside the Four Courts complex. It was opened in 1867 as a purpose-built modern archival repository. As you see the building there, it has 2 parts to it. The front part, the part to the left, if you like, was the record house. So this is the administration block, and this is where the staff worked, it's where the archivists worked, where the public went to consult the records. If you see the chimneys on that building, so the chimneys let you know that there were fireplaces in the offices. The offices were lit by gas lamps, so this was a place of risk for delicate archival records. So separately, the records were kept in the rear building, the building with the tall arched windows, and those arched windows you'll see echoed in our logo, the Virtual Treasury logo on the right-hand side. Tall arched windows down each side, a huge glass roof flooded with natural light, the idea being that you didn't need to have gas light or false lighting in this purpose-built archive. Heating was done by hot water pipes, not by furnaces or by stoves. All the shelving, all the walkways were done in metal, and all the staircases were in metal. So it was a noisy place, but designed to be fireproof, specifically designed to be fireproof. But the key third part was the fire break highlighted here. So between the front and back sections, there was a void about 3 meters wide, and the two buildings didn't touch. You exited the front building through a door into a void area, and then entered the second building through another door and into the record treasury. It was expected at some time in the future that the front building would go on fire accidentally, often happened in archives, so the rear building could be isolated to protect the records. And you see the records are kept in what they call the record treasury, and treasures is how they regarded these records, national treasures. So in its history, the Public Record Office of Ireland, the archivists, did amazing work in gathering in all the records from all around Ireland, in conserving them, in putting order and shape on all those good archival things. They put sort of intellectual structure on them. They created indexes and finding aids and catalogues. They smoothed and cleaned and repaired, and they published transcripts of many of these documents. So there's normally like a 12-week undergrad survey course on the War of Independence, and then another 12 weeks on the Civil War. I'll do this in about 12 words. In the opening battle of the Irish Civil War, in April 1922, the anti-treaty forces occupied the Four Courts complex and therefore the Public Record Office. And by the end of June 1922, the political tensions had risen into open civil war, and the opening shots of the Civil War took place here at the Four Courts. So on the 30th of June 1922, the entire collection, 7 centuries of Irish history, went up in smoke in a huge explosion, and a pillar of smoke up over the city, casting burnt records all into the sky. So what was lost? This was a huge challenge for us. Our job was to try and reconstruct as far as possible this lost collection. So what was lost in the building, there was some mythologizing, but what was lost in the building were records going back to the 13th century, back to the Norman invasion, records of military conquest, land ownership, land seizure by the state and re-grant, taxation, law and order, and then as government increased in its reach as the time became more modern, as government increased, education, health, housing, all those sorts of things came into play in the archive. One of the key things that were lost in the destruction in 1922 was the 19th century census, all those individual census returns of every household in Ireland, particularly for the pre-famine, the early 19th century period. So after the battle, the destruction was fairly comprehensive. What you see here is the destroyed record treasury, all melted, all burnt. Ironically, what's not shown to the left, or just sort of out of shot of this photograph here, is the front building, the record house. It was badly damaged, but it survived because the fire break worked, but in the opposite direction to that intended, tragically, or in fact wonderfully, because the records in the front building were the administrative records of the archive. So this is where they kept the finding aids, the indexes, the catalogues, to a destroyed archive, but they were the key seeds that we needed to begin our work to understand what had been in the building, and therefore to understand where we could find replacements. So our work began in 2016. As I say, we're funded under the decade of centenaries. We had a 5-year run-up to the centenary of the destruction in 1922, and the expert advisory group on centenaries nominated us as a sort of a legacy project that would sort of live on and continue to open doors, as I say, to Ireland's deeper history. It began as a small idea. I had a 6-week infill contract to see were there any records to be found. It became rapidly apparent that there were more records than we could cope with, and our problem is now one of scale. There are so many records out there, copies, and I'll explain how we do it, copies of records that were lost in 1922. We are very much, and this fits with today's theme, we're very much a partnership. We have 5 core partners. These are the 3 state archives in Dublin, London and Belfast. And I know Janet Hancock from Prony in Belfast is speaking later today, and Prony are amazingly good colleagues of ours in Belfast. And we also have the Irish Manuscripts Commission here in Dublin and the Library of Trinity College Dublin, my home institution. But importantly, and just as significantly as those 5 core partners, are a growing list, now over 70 independent archives, libraries belonging to universities, town libraries, city libraries, private institution archives, literally from California to Australia. We meet with them, we spend a lot of time, at the beginning we spent a lot of time having discussions with people in these archives and explaining what we were doing, getting their advice, taking their advice on board, listening to their comments and their fears, and keeping those relationships strong and keeping those people informed. So it's a lot of time on relationships is what we do. So how do we do what we do? Here's an example of a record that was created in the 1740s. So the person writing this record in the 1740s was writing it in preparation for a history of Ireland that they're writing in the 18th century. They have in front of them an original document from 1291, so very close to the Norman invasion. So they have this, the 1291 original there. They write this transcript you see here, Edward, by the grace of God, I'm pretending to read Latin here, King of England, Lord of Ireland, Duke of Aquitaine, and so forth. That's only a copy. The original is kept safe. It's kept safe, moved into the Public Record Office of Ireland, where it's preserved in a safe, fireproof building. Then the battle comes, the building is destroyed, and what was only a copy becomes the only copy. So its nature has been transformed by the fire, if you like. So what we need to do is we need to capture the historical content of this, plus its archival history, its archival story, and the metadata describing what it is, and bring it into the virtual treasury. What we've done is we've created a catalogue, a modern archival standard catalogue for the destroyed archive. So as we find replacement records, we can pin them to where they would have been, if you like, on the shelves in a sense of the destroyed archive. And there might be 3 or 4 replacement things for one lost original, and then many originals for which we will never find anything to replace them. We have many. We've now over 250,000 records in the archive, in the treasury. We're not an archive, we're a treasury. Many of these are manuscript items, and manuscript items are problematic because people if you can't read the handwriting, you can't get at the historical content. So happily, another EU-funded project, which was nothing to do with us, but was coming to fruition just as we were doing our work, was the Transcribus project run out of the University of Innsbruck in Austria. And Transcribus and the Reed Co-op, they've developed amazing software to mechanically transcribe, or machine transcription of handwriting. And this used artificial intelligence to produce wonderful transcriptions of handwriting. It's not perfect, but it gets you to about 80–85% accuracy, which is enough to find place names and people names, which is where most research begins. So that makes the documents human readable, but also makes them machine readable. And this is terribly important because we're a computer science project as well. So the machine can read and spot links between the very many documents that we have. Now, I don't want to spend too long on this slide because this is one that we put in sometimes depending on the different audiences we're speaking to, but to emphasize the fact that there's a huge amount of computer science under the floorboards, if you like, that run what we do. We create the archival metadata, we image the documents, we transcribe them with Transcribus, we bring them through into the curating bit where the database links the replacement item and the metadata from its host institution with our metadata from our lost record office, if you like, makes them available through the virtual treasury. The ADAPT logo you see there is ADAPT is a Science Foundation Ireland-funded computer science research programme based in multiple Irish universities. And then the last panel on the slide is about interlinking. We're very keen to work with this on our computer science side, linked open data, to interlink our collections with other collections so that they're not siloed. This methodology that we've developed could work in other cultural losses in other contexts as well, with some minor adjustment, I think. So to show you an example of a search, I'm just searching here on the Treasury for the word Kilkenny, and you'll see you get many results, a few thousand results for Kilkenny. You can filter by date range to narrow it down, or you can filter by type of record or donating institution. Picking the first example here, so this happens to be something from the National Archives of Ireland. It's part of the John Lodge manuscripts collection. And these are, just click on the thumbnail and jump down to the digital record. So to search for the word within the digital object, you retype your Kilkenny search here, and it'll find, I think, about half a dozen examples of the word Kilkenny in this text. And what you're seeing here is, this is a document produced in the 18th century reflecting historical content from the 16th century. So this is members of Parliament for Kilkenny in 1585 and 1613. So the historical content is older than the physical document because the original historical document was lost in 1922. So this is one example. The examples I've shown you here, like the Walter Harris example I showed you earlier from the 1291, that's one page in a 600-page volume, and there's 10 such volumes. You get some idea of the scale. These lodge documents, there are thousands of lodge documents, so the scale of copy and replacement material out there is enormous. We are, like, computer science is a key part of what we do, and so we're keen on developing collaborations. So we have collaboration, one that's quite far down the line at the moment is with the Dictionary of Irish Biography. And this is a wonderful resource. It's hosted in the Royal Irish Academy. It is a huge collection of concise biographies, reliable biographies of Irish, historical Irish characters and people with a historical relationship with Ireland. The staff in the DIB are very conscious that women are underrepresented in their collections, and I suspect that in our archival collections, women are underrepresented as well as they are in most state archives. So what we've done is we've worked with their structured metadata. They have very generously donated their metadata to our computer scientists. So this is structured metadata where we have the names of the women, we have their dates of birth, dates of death, family connections, their political or occupational or activist roles and so forth. And with that structured metadata, we can do, or our computer scientists can do quite a lot. At the moment, we're trying to make links, but this is just a visualization to show you where this could go. This is just a visualization of 1,000 Irish women and the kind of areas of activity they were involved in. It is experimental at the moment, whereas there's still lots of work to happen on it, but the idea will be that you can link through from one of these bubbles through to those women's entries in the Dictionary of Irish Biography, and then through to find them as they appear in the various record collections in the Virtual Record Treasury at whatever point in history it is. There are other projects on bogland restoration and on ancient woodlands. Ancient woodlands just starting in Maynooth at the moment, and these are ones that we think we can possibly have some meaningful connection with. We are a research ecosystem, so we have research ongoing not only in computer science but in history, medieval history, early modern and 18th century history. And one I want to focus on here is localities and communities. I mentioned that the 19th century census was a huge loss. So my colleague Brian Gurin is leading a research project on any kind of replacement for lost census records. And so he's working on all kinds of things that could replace census records. But one I want to show you here is just to give you a sense of the kind of stuff we work with. This is a fragment, perhaps the size of your hand, of burnt paper that fell from the sky after the battle in 1922. And what it is a tantalizingly rare piece of the 1821 census. There were millions of these, amazing. The first ever census in the English-speaking world that recorded everybody in their household. So here we see John Bond, Jenny Bond and Fanny Bond, their daughter, and Brian's detective work has pinned this back to a house in County Donegal. But he's working on any kind of records he can find which can act as replacements or surrogates for the lost census. We do a lot of work with public engagement. We were actually up in Donegal last week speaking at the public library. Although we're an online project, the need to go out and speak to the public is really huge, and the public really respond very well to that. And we get a great sense of whether we're making something useful for the community, the research community. But on our public engagement, on the online side of it, we've created a virtual reality model of the destroyed building. The front section of the building, as I say, survived. It is now the Court of Appeal, but the rear section has disappeared and been completely replaced. We're now inside the reading room, as it was in 1922, the last day of normal business. But you can go through the reading room and you can go back in time through the fire break, and we're now going back into 1867. And this is back to the day the Record Treasury opened. It had no records on the shelves. You can go in and jump around on your laptop or your tablet, move up to the top floor. There's a nice art exhibition on the top floor. But as we proceed through the building, through the Treasury, at the back, this is a bit meta, we're inside a virtual reality model of a building, and you're looking at a doll's house model of that same building, okay? And if you click on the doll's house model, it'll open like a book, and this is like a cabinet of curiosities. This is like 100 items for the 100th anniversary, and this is to lure people in, people who might not normally go to an archive, to lure them in and make them interested. And this is a document from the Dublin City Library and Archives collection, very good colleagues of ours. So the metadata is there, you link through, and it's showing you when it loads now, it'll show you the pavement tax list for Merrion Square, prestigious address in Dublin in 1776 and still fairly prestigious. And here you can zoom in and see the names of people, so you can do some sort of social reconstruction from that. So I just want to end, as I said, with a couple of brief reflections on what we've learned, because we were starting on a thing that we didn't know anything about other than we knew what we wanted to do. And I hope this doesn't seem cheeky, but I thought it might be useful for the day, because it's stuff that we think about a lot in the project. The thing we learned most was to have lots and lots of conversations early in our project, to go and speak with other groups that were doing anything even vaguely related. So like this happening here, like Charter is doing, creating conversations was hugely valuable, saved us huge amounts of time. At the time it seemed like endless conversations, but they stopped you going down a wrong track, or for us they did. We engaged with the computer science people at the very beginning. These are not IT services people that come in to fix the plug in the back of the laptop. These are researchers. They're interested in us only because we have research problems for them. They don't want easy fixes. They want human life problems that can be fixed with computer science, and it takes hundreds of conversations to say, no, but that won't work, but this might work. They have different intellectual approaches. They go for certainty. We're humanities. We don't go for certainty. Human life isn't certain. Interpretations aren't certain. Language, the language they use one meaning for the word record. We had quite a different meaning for the word record. It took us a month of conversations to find out we were both using the same word for different purposes. But that all means that the conversations are worthwhile. Metadata. I'm a historian. I had never any need to touch metadata through my entire PhD or undergrad studies. Now half my life is in metadata. But metadata is, I think we have to realize that if we're doing anything online or anything in storage, that the metadata, we have to be involved in metadata conversations, because that's how the computer and ultimately the public will understand and see what we're doing. If there's a problem in the metadata, there's a problem in what they will see and get about us. And then finally, on recruitment, we recruit some humanities people and many computer science people, because the turnover in computer science and information management is much greater. It's a more competitive environment. We keep losing people there. So it's important that we have to have people on an advisory level who can help us pick the right colleagues, and then also keep the documentation right, so that as staff churn happens, that you have documentation of your processes. On the humanities side, we thought at the beginning we might want historians who are also computer scientists. That's not the case. Historians, some might be, but they're not. But it's about that the historians and the heritage and the community, the humanities people, have to see part of their job is talking all the time to the computer science people. Being in the conversation is our responsibility to inform that conversation, to be as loyal and faithful to our discipline as possible. And then finally, just to say that many tasks can be contracted out. So imaging large amounts of documentation, creating large amounts of metadata. There are firms that will do this, and computer scientists don't want to do it. Historians can do it, but they're not good at doing it. You need precise people who do it as a living, and that's been extremely important for us to learn that lesson. So I hope you'll visit the site, and thanks for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kieran. That was fascinating. It's a new world to a humanities person like me. We have our last brief introduction to heritage in Ireland today, and it's the Irish Community Archive Network. And before I ask Lorna Elms and Mary O'Malley to come up onto the stage, just to say that people's own speaker biographies will be on the Charter website by the end of the day, perhaps, certainly in the near future, just to let you know who they are if you would like to get in touch with them again. So Lorna and Mary, I'd love to welcome you up. Thank you.
Thank you, Nessa. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honour to be here this morning to talk to you about the Irish Community Archive Network, the leading organisation championing and supporting digital community archives in Ireland. I'm going to rip that off if I can. Okay. ICANN, as it's more commonly known, was initiated by the National Museum of Ireland in 2009 and emerged from a recognition that there is a need to equip, empower and resource local communities so that they can gather, document and preserve their unique histories and heritage and make this material more widely accessible. Our members are supported in these activities and are provided with a digital community archive platform where they can curate their collections and make them available to people all over the world so that they too can explore, contribute to, and utilise this rich cultural heritage content. ICANN is delivered in partnership with the Heritage Council, participating local authority heritage officers and local volunteers based in Ireland and abroad. We have also been supported in our development by the Creative Ireland programme. Our journey began with a pilot project with one group, and over the years we have grown incrementally in a controlled and sustainable way. We currently have a network of 34 archives with 2 more in development, and our partnership with the Heritage Council has provided additional resources needed to facilitate our continued expansion. Through ICANN, we are all working together to achieve a shared goal and to engage others with the archives by providing opportunities for active participation and collaboration. We have worked with a range of heritage and educational organisations and are actively working towards establishing a more integrated support structure for groups undertaking this important work at local level. As a community-centred initiative, ICANN has and continues to be developed in partnership with our community members, whose aims, needs and views are kept to the forefront of everything we do. So I'm delighted to be co-presenting today with Mary O'Malley, who will talk about ICANN from the community perspective. The practice we term community archiving generally emerges from a deep connection to place, a shared sense of identity and a passion for local history and heritage. Over the last decade in Ireland, we have witnessed an unprecedented growth in community heritage activity and an increased interest in sharing outputs online. Through ICANN, we are able to encourage good standards of practice and a coherence in the way histories are presented to a wider audience. To this end, a foundational pillar of ICANN's operations is providing training, guidance and advice to support our members' community archiving and related activities. On this slide, you will see the different types of training that we provide, designed to equip our members with the knowledge and skills to become confident local historians and effective editors and moderators of their community archive websites. We also support their creativity and efforts to engage others with the content through building and strengthening their digital expertise. The skills, knowledge and confidence developed through the training programme help establish good heritage practice, contribute to cultural and social capital, and are often transferable to other areas of personal, professional and civic life. We also draw upon the particular expertise of our heritage officer partners and their local authority colleagues who also contribute to the delivery of the programme, a county archivist, a local studies librarian and community archaeologist. And we disseminate information on training opportunities provided through other agencies. We also regularly look for our community's input into our training programmes to keep it current and relevant. Through our annual winter evening talk series, and I'm sure you'll recognise one of the slides on here, we organise virtual sessions on topics that will broaden and strengthen historical knowledge, open up new research avenues and generate an awareness of the many different record repositories that can support members' research. Resources to support training and self-learning are available on the ICANN website. These include presentations and recorded sessions, handouts and a library of how-to videos. To ensure equality of access and opportunity, we also have a members' Zoom Pro account that can be used as required. Many of these resources are also made available to the general public, and where possible, we help other groups who get in touch looking for help or guidance. As a digital initiative, it is essential that we provide a dedicated technical support service. Hassan Dabar, our network administrator, supports everyone involved, resolving any technical issues, liaising with our digital platform architects, and helping our members realise their creative ideas for presenting material online. Hassan also facilitates the ICANN Digital Champions workshops, where members share their knowledge and learn from each other. In summary, to build, strengthen and sustain capacity at local level, we facilitate learning and skills development in a way that enables our community members to do things for themselves. and to encourage them to pass on the skills they learn, both to their fellow group members and to others in the network. We know that creating an online repository for their community is the top priority for the groups that join ICANN, but they may not have the confidence, the skills or means to do so. The training, guidance and access to heritage expertise are the primary reasons groups initially engage with us. However, once involved, they tell us that they also really enjoy and benefit from meeting like-minded people undertaking similar work, and the sharing of experience and ideas they find reassuring and motivational. ICANN communities help shape the programme through feedback, consultation, evaluation and decision-making, and 2 elected members sit on our advisory group. This collaborative approach ensures we deliver support in a more informed way and also helps us to maintain positive long-term relationships, which can be potentially more challenging than attracting initial interest and membership. Relationships within ICANN are founded on trust, which takes time and patience to grow, but unfortunately can easily be damaged with a thoughtless word or action. So a great deal of conscious effort and care goes into ensuring that relations are continually maintained, and I'm happy to say that so far at least, every group that has joined ICANN since 2009 is still with us. Our mantra is that the process is as important as the product, because if our members aren't enjoying and benefiting from the experience or don't feel heard or respected, then they will quickly disengage. Based on our experience, we have found the following approaches extremely helpful for building trust and maintaining engagement. From the outset, discuss and agree your goals. Your goals need to be in alignment and mutually beneficial, otherwise competing agendas and priorities are likely to undermine the collaborative process. Manage expectations. Be clear what the community can expect from you and what you expect from the community. Make sure you deliver what was agreed. Always be positive, respectful and clear in your communication. You don't want to leave room for misunderstandings. Be prepared to really listen and change things up as a result. There should be the scope to be flexible, and if there isn't, then you're probably trying to exert too much control over the collaborative process. Be informed and enthusiastic. Don't try to impose or dictate the collaborative process. It is much better to work to enthuse and motivate and empower. I'm now just going to touch on who is engaging with these archives. Unfortunately, it's impossible to know the true extent of what is being used, for what purpose and by whom. However, we do know from inquiries and permission requests, emails of thanks and appreciation, community feedback and Google Analytics data that the material is being utilised for a wide variety of purposes. Community engaging community. This is where ICANN members encourage engagement and use of materials through online projects. For example, the Who's Been Living in My House initiative based on transcriptions of Griffith's valuation cancelled land books. We know that teachers at all educational levels use the archives as a teaching resource, and that second-level students are tapping into the material for their Leaving Cert history projects. A postgraduate student requested use of images for their thesis on 1930s excavations, and a teacher based in Japan told us he uses the archives to teach his Japanese students English, and he also requested permission to use an image for his book, Multilingualism, A Very Short Introduction, Oxford University Press. There have been requests granted for use of images in educational textbooks, including one published by the University of Wales. Members of the public and diaspora tell us that they have found information in the archives that has unlocked a mystery or provided a missing link in a family tree. This kind of engagement seems to be the most common by far, or perhaps they are just the most apparent, and can lead to visits from abroad to local places of ancestral interest and the reconnection of family members. Examples here would be image requests for Who Do You Think You Are USA, an Irish language documentary for T.G. Caha on 1970s Irish musicians The Bothy Band, as well as a Tourism Island documentary. Also, permissions were sought for the Coastal Atlas of Ireland, Cork University Press, and a spiritual art book on mandalas and self-healing. Numerous journalists have utilised the archives for articles, such as Noel Russell, a Belfast-based journalist, a writer and award-winning producer who sourced information for his work on Patrick Devlin, a sniper operating in Normandy and Germany during World War II. We also know from analytics data that well over 6 million pages of cultural heritage content have been viewed across the network, and our largest audiences are pretty consistently and perhaps unsurprisingly from Ireland and the main destinations for Irish emigrants, the UK, USA, Australia and Canada. Thanks very much. I'm now going to hand over to Mary.
Thank you, Lorna, and good morning, everyone. As Lorna has been outlining and explaining that ICANN is a network of communities that are empowered to record their own heritage as a digital archive. But it actually goes much deeper than that, than an online website, because the legacy will be a rich resource of ordinary stories, archived and accessible to all, but with a deeper yet impact on those communities involved, by having trained and skilled volunteers who will impart their knowledge and their abilities in their own communities and in their own places. I grew up in a small rural village on the west of Ireland where everybody knows everybody, and sometimes they know more about you than you know yourself. And again, my parents have a small sheep farm. I was lucky to grow up with the influences of my grandparents until my teenage years. And growing up in the countryside entailed many hours of outdoor work, but growing our own vegetables and tending to the farm animals. But it also meant endless hours of explorations of the wild bogs of Mayo, of the wedge tombs, the standing stones, the beach rock pools, abandoned houses, and a ruined church. And long before Outlander or Arach, we had our own fairy ring forts and ghost stories from our elders to fuel our imagination and entertain us. My grandfather was a great storyteller and an encyclopedia of information. He was a much sought after, what we now know to be called a genealogist. He could bring tourists to the ruins of their ancestors' homesteads, and indeed he could tell you the exact spot, even if only marked by a stone, of their burial place. My grandmother was a very skilled wool spinner and knitter, and she featured in the Hands series recorded in the 1970s by David and Sally Shaw Smith, which was documenting traditional skills and crafts people of Ireland, a time when everything was homemade, home-produced, and nothing was wasted. As a young adult, I discovered that the place in which I had grew up in was a prominent archaeological, geographical, and unique area. I guess all of these factors shaped my passion for local heritage. My interest was awakened in the fact that heritage or history, it's not boring. It's everything from a derelict building, which has a story to tell, to a river, to a fairy fable, or to a person who lived in a particular place in a particular time. I, along with a few volunteers, decided to set up a small heritage group. And in 2009, along came the National Museum, offering communities help with archiving their local heritage. We signed up immediately. We were now on a journey that launched our local area, its inhabitants, their memories and stories, onto a global stage in November 2011. When we started gathering information for our website, I couldn't send an email. I simply didn't know how to. I had no knowledge of computers or skills. But with the support and the training from the sessions in ICANN, soon I was emailing, editing photographs, creating content for pages on our website, and really gaining more confidence in what we were set out to do. The training developed as the needs arose to support our archive, and perhaps most importantly, the ICANN team, they believed in us and our contributions to the heritage sector. Over the years, people from a wide range of backgrounds and abilities have joined what we now fondly call the ICANN family. Our locale started to see this online archive as a place to reshare and showcase our heritage. Louisburg had a parish magazine that had started in the 1950s, and now we could go and source those out of print issues and digitalise them and share them with a whole new generation. Genealogy will always feature in any community archive, and we were able to facilitate a free platform where connections can be made and families could be reunited. We were able to give some presentations on local topics to the local schools and engage the students in relevant projects. Interviews of more senior members of the parish were encouraged. One of the first projects we undertook was a collaboration with our local school, gathering stories from their parents and grandparents of growing up in the Louisburg-Killeen area. It was inspired by the National Folklore Collection. Those students that participated and captured those important stories are now all finished college, 24, 25 years old, working their way in the world, and sadly some of the people that they interviewed are no longer with us. So this small project has become a very meaningful and has a very special place in our community. As an archive, we also became a magnet for other local community groups to collaborate with, like the Louisburg Area Men's Shed, the Climate Action Louisburg Locality Group, and we were able to produce some wonderful material for our archive. We were creating and archiving a new kind of living history, a living heritage on our website. So while all this local Louisburg-Killeen heritage was going on, a bigger network of communities were connecting through ICANN. And joint projects or events were planned, and this in turn has cemented relationships. I think the most beautiful aspect of ICANN is the knowledge sharing between communities. Any project undertaken by an individual community is shared, and it can be replicated in another group. Equally, we can participate in network-wide activities. For example, we had the Our Irish Women project. This was a commemorative project that recognised women from our communities who had achieved success in any aspect of life. In Louisburg-Killeen, we were delighted to highlight the story of Dr. Sister Hilary Lyons, a champion for better healthcare and education in women and children in Sierra Leone, where she worked for over 40 years. This project accumulated in an exhibition that went on display in the National Museum before travelling to every ICANN community. It is the gift that has continued to keep on giving, because as recently as October 2023, we hosted a Professor Nancy Edwards from the University of Ottawa in Canada, who gave a presentation on her new book, detailing her time spent working alongside Dr. Sister Hilary in Sierra Leone. This inspiring woman, who even after her death is being celebrated through this ICANN initiative. Our little place of Louisburg-Killeen is now showcased through ICANN. There is no I in team, but ICANN has broken barriers. As the years have passed, I have participated in many projects promoting our heritage, produced lots of our own videos, given numerous presentations within Louisburg-Killeen, written hundreds of emails and pages for our website, edited photos, curated exhibitions. We were delighted when we won the Mayo County Award during National Heritage Week for one of our events. I've also become an ICANN digital champion, and I have the absolute honour of representing our community groups on the ICANN advisory board. Thanks to ICANN, I now manage numerous social media accounts for both our local heritage and other community groups in Louisburg and Killeen. This has been a personal journey of learning new skills that are transferable in different aspects of my life. Some of our members have been so inspired that they have undertaken college and university courses, and some are now working in heritage-related careers. I think what Lorna has said today about ICANN's approach to heritage is very important. How to be sustainable, how to be inclusive, and how to be a unique heritage archive while maintaining the ethos of ICANN and our partners. Having access to the professionals in the National Museum, the Heritage Council, and countless experts in all different aspects of heritage allows us to archive, record, preserve our heritage while being monitored, mentored, and guided, but with the room to be creative and to be different. Attending lectures and online meetings like the Winter Talk series has broadened our scope of learning. Being listened to by an understanding and patient project manager, and having a dedicated IT support, it's ensuring that all our members are included and that we're all working to the highest standards of best practice. There is always something new becoming available, like the advances in AI and social media platforms. ICANN recognises the technology changes, and we were able to upgrade our website in 2022 to be as inclusive as possible. Anyone, anywhere in the world can contribute to our heritage online, and there are very easy to follow online forums and step-by-step tutorials. The opportunities and potentials within ICANN are testament to the growing list of communities who want to join. It's also reflected in the partnerships and the collaborations, like the National Heritage Council coming on board as a funding partner for the next 5 years. In Louisburgh-Killeen, we are excited about the future of our past, and we are privileged to be members of ICANN, a place where small community historians can gather, preserve, and share their memories and stories with a worldwide audience. We can with ICANN. An rud is anach is iontach. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary and Lorna. That's just great, isn't it? It's just wonderful because it speaks to what is possible and what takes aid in nourishing, and one of Lorna's slides, expert-fed, not expert-led. So we can all work together. We're always learning from each other. Look, we're a little bit late getting to 11 o'clock on the nail, getting to our coffee, tea and coffee, out in the lobby where you came in, and we'll try and get back here 20 past 11. So we're going to hurry you up a little bit, because we have a very, very interesting panel discussion after this. Come back in 20 minutes, please. Thank you.